Hey guys, Garrett Exner from Veterans on Duty. We're here with another episode of Beyond the Call today. I sat down with Congresswoman Mariannette Miller-Meeks out of Iowa. She's got an incredible story of how she became a nurse in the Army, then a doctor, served for a long time in the Army, and now she's serving in the halls of Congress doing the great work of the American people. Hope you'll stick around for this episode. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Beyond the Call today. Like I said earlier, you're one of my favorite congresswomen, my wife's favorite for sure. You've done so much great work on the Veterans Affairs Committee, on the Energy Committee, but thank you for joining us. I'd love to jump right in and just ask you about your time in service. And maybe I should start by just asking, what was your path to service? You joined to become a nurse and then go to medical school, but how did you make that decision?
Well, first and foremost, my service began before I enlisted at 18. So I was in a military family. My dad was career Air Force enlisted. He only served one tour that I recall overseas, and that was when I was too young to know what he was doing. But we traveled around. We were, in a military family. We went to Armed Services Day on a military poster base. He was borrowed by the Army several times, even though he was Air Force. So I grew up in the military and was very comfortable with it. As a matter of fact, when I left home at 16 to start at San Antonio Junior College, I didn't know where to go grocery shopping. And I know that seems really stupid to people because you see grocery stores everywhere, but we always went to the commissary, on base or on post. And so it was like, where do you go get groceries? And so when I enlisted when I was 18, I was comfortable with the service. And I knew that you have a family within the service that, other people don't have, that there's a camaraderie. And I saw it as a place where there was tremendous opportunity within the military. So I enlisted, and then I got my degree in nursing, then got promoted to lieutenant, as a nurse, could work at night to get the courses I needed for med school. So I just kept working. But even if I didn't make it to med school, I loved nursing in the military. Went overseas, was our charge nurse for our MASH hospital at the 121 evac in Seoul, South Korea. But I just think there is a camaraderie. It is a system based on merit, which is something that when you come from a very poor family, a very humble circumstances, you want to know that there is a system in a country such as the United States where people can, on their own and certainly with help, they can achieve their dreams. And I think that that's offered to you in the military, and you're supported in that. People want you to be excellent in the military.
What do you say to someone who, you meet a young person now, they want to get into medicine, they want to become a nurse or a doctor or a physician? Do you say the military is a great pathway to do this? Do you try to encourage them to that, or do you let them just go the normal medical school?
We absolutely do. There are several young people that we have steered toward the military, both my husband and I. So the great thing about the Army and the military, I met my husband at Walter Reed. So when I was a lieutenant nurse and he was an E6, Spec 6, I was on the neuro floor and he was on ENT and oncology. So we met in the basement of Walter Reed. He got an Article 15 for dating me, so I had to pay a $50 fine. Stuck with me, so wasn't too bad.
That's a cheap price for to marry a doctor. That's pretty good.
Well, I wasn't a doctor at the time, so he was marrying hopes and dreams more than anything. And
aren't we all?
So I was the fourth of 8 kids. He was the second of 9. Still the only one in his family ever to have gone to college. But absolutely, we both think very highly of the military. Number one, serving your country. There is no higher or greater honor that we have. And then number two, if that's not enough for you, then the ability to develop yourself in the context of helping a bigger unit and a bigger team. And so there are many young people that we have spoken with about the military, we have guided. There's one that was my clerk when I was state senator, who is in the Air Force now, married, just had his first child. So we absolutely do talk in a very favorable way about the military and the opportunities for people.
And you're continuing to serve now, I'd say, maybe most importantly on the VA and the Veterans Affairs Committee here in the House. What are your priorities? We just had an interview recently with Secretary Collins and all the great work he's doing over there. What are your priorities in Congress to kind of help veterans, take care of veterans, and maybe fix some things at the VA?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's our support for veterans having care where they are. And people like to make this distinguishment about if you support the Mission Act and care within a community, that you're not supporting the VA. I support all aspects of VA care, and I think care within the community is VA care. And that comes from having been in the military for a long time. You realize that you have a system and you have individuals who are now, after the Cold War, the peace dividend was that our active duty strength decreased, but our entire military strength is made up of individuals that are both in the reserves and the National Guards. And prior to President Bush, if you were in the National Guard, you didn't get deployed overseas. But as we know, we saw a lot of members that were deployed overseas, and when half of your fighting strength is made up of people who are not in the military full time, those individuals don't go back to a post or a base. They go back to a family, they go back to a community. Sometimes they have neither of those things. And so helping to build those resources within communities for our veterans who are not going back to an active duty military post or base, I think gives them support where they are. And that's especially true when it comes to mental health and when it comes to PTSD, behavioral health issues, to have access to care. One of the things we found out in one of our hearings was that the VA did not consider residential substance use disorder treatment, so addictions, and residential mental health care. They didn't consider that to fall within the 30 days or 40 miles of the Mission Act. So they had no impetus to get people in to be seen. And as a doctor and a nurse, having taken care of those individuals, when you come to the point that you think that you need to enter rehab, or you think you're suicidal and you need residential care, those people need to get in immediately.
Absolutely.
They need to be addressed and served. So first and foremost is getting veterans access to high quality care, but access to care supersedes all of it.
Especially in rural areas where, you're asking veterans to drive miles, tens and dozens of miles to get to care. It's much better if we have something accessible for them where they're at.
And think about this. Our veterans who return from Iraq and Afghanistan, many with multiple deployments, which was also a new thing within our military, with multiple deployments, they're a younger group, they're a younger cadre than what the VA hospital was established for. So you have this younger group of individuals and women coming back in record numbers, most of whom have families and or work. And so for them to have to travel to go get care imposes an additional burden on them.
Yeah. Can you tell us one story from your time in service that kind of stands out, impacts you today, something good or bad, something that you kind of carry forward in your work, in your continued service for the country now?
It would be when I was stationed at Walter Reed, and I had a patient who had an aneurysm. It was a wife of a military member, and she did not do well. And I remember being up with her all night, caring for her, getting the neurosurgeons in. I still remember her name very well. And when she was finally discharged and she was in a vegetative state, and I went down to Norfolk to visit her husband and her there. But that family, what they went through, has remained with me my entire life and drives me to push harder for excellence, for quality care, for diligence, the whole thing you want in your medical providers, which is this anal retentive, obsessive compulsive, perfectionistic, so that you don't miss something that then impacts an individual's life.
Absolutely.
That I didn't push hard enough. And so I think that of all speaks to talking with people about their care, about death, about what may face them, how to overcome it, pushing and driving yourself to be the very best you can be so that you can deliver the best care to those veterans. Those things stay with you. And I think that because of that experience, I was a much better doctor, one who would listen, who would pay attention, who'd go to the mat for their patients. And so I credit that time time being with those individuals, learning about traumatic brain injury, which we didn't call traumatic brain injury at the time, learning how to flip a striker frame and take care of somebody. And you also learn the value of people, regardless of whether they're able-bodied or not able-bodied, that each of those lives are precious and worth saving and worth helping to maximize their potential. And so you can see that in the things that I do in Congress.
Wow. I will just say, I think that answer just displays so much of why we need more veterans serving in Congress, more people like you serving in Congress. That was a wonderful answer, and you could see your passion really come through for this and for the American people. I'd like to change topics and talk a little bit about Department of War. Where do you think Congress's role is right now in protecting maybe top line numbers for Department of War, making sure our warfighters have what they need going forward? There's a lot of, I think, angst about budgets and how much the country's spending. But what do you see as your role in Congress to protect Department of War equities?
So first and foremost, one of the primary functions of the federal government is to protect our nation. So to protect and defend our Constitution, to protect the nation, and to make sure the nation is safe and secure. So that requires that we have a true assessment of what our needs are when it comes to manpower. So what's our military strength? How do we make up our military strength? And also in where an executive branch chooses to send people, where they choose to focus upon, and whether or not, we should be able to have some influence in an administrative branch on, where they're pivoting to. I think our military serves that function very well in advising the president of, regardless of party, in where their focus is and where we think there are hot spots or a danger. Helping to set up those alliances, the military does that by the work that they do all over the globe. And that helps to keep the homeland safe. So whether it's the number of people within the military, whether it's the equipment, and then I would say that we shouldn't get too complacent with technology. So we're a wealthy country. We have some of the most advanced technology in the world. But I know that you've been in circumstances where technology and all of the advancements you had failed you. And as a doctor, I can tell you that all the technology in the world may not help me in the field to save a patient. It's just basic ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. And so we need people to have that technology to be the best warfighter we can be. But we also need people that can improvise, pivot, adapt, change the circumstances, go back to non-technological advances. We need those people in the military as well. So making sure you have that as your fighting force, and then not forgetting humanity.
What do you see as the biggest threat facing America right now? External, internal, what do you think? Is it kind of a rise of Marxism and socialism inside the country? Is it the rise of China, Exner, or is it something else that we're not even kind of looking at right now?
I think it's our own culture and our own individuals and how we face those external threats. And do we see external threats as threats? You have the Chinese Communist Party, which is in South America, and helping and assisting other nations in a way that the Monroe Doctrine was set up to do, to keep communism out of South America, away from our borders. And so a level of complacency as we have become a more a nation that is more wealthy than other nations, having that hunger, that drive, the lack of education and people knowing what it means to be a U.S. citizen, knowing the founding of this country and how this country was founded, knowing that the United States has and its economic system has helped more people to get out of poverty and has helped save probably countless wars and battles. I think one of the things I heard when we left Afghanistan and we had an incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan that cost 13 service members their lives and created 13 new Gold Star families. But one of the things I heard was endless wars, and we were there for 20 years. That totally denigrated the service of everyone in the Iraq and Afghanistan war. we had success in Afghanistan. What was that? Afghanistan was not a safe haven for terrorism. We prevented that by our service there. We allowed Afghanistan to advance into this century for countless individuals. And we're still trying to get those who helped and were embedded with our service members back because of the incompetent withdrawal. But to say that it was meaningless, I think that just does a disservice to all who served. And so I think we need to highlight the things that we do well, the importance of our military, why service is important, and then how we are actually keeping the nation safe.
I love that message. I will just say thank you on behalf of Iraq veterans. Thank you for agreeing that our service there was not meaningless. I would just like to end by asking you, we typically ask members if they have a coin, a challenge coin, or a story, something that's meaningful for you from your time in service that you could share with us today, or tell us a story if you have a challenge coin on you. If you don't, that's okay, but you can tell us about it.
So Anthony, as we're walking out of the office, asked me if I have a challenge coin. And so let me say in the medical field, you don't do a lot with challenge coins when you're in, nursing and medicine. But as the chair of the Subcommittee on Health for the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, one of our biggest challenges is suicide prevention, PTSD, looking at new ways to treat, highlighting non-VA organizations that are working to help provide support for veterans. And so one of the first things we did, and so this is Canines for Warriors. And so having service animals appropriately qualified as service animals, appropriate distinction for service animals, and helping provide service animals for veterans to help treat their PTSD. It's not a drug. It doesn't have the side effects of drugs, but it can be invaluable in helping prevent suicide in our service members. So Canines for Veterans,
nice.
Treating our warriors, non-medicinal, but maybe something that saves countless lives.
Great. Well, Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate the time that you spent with us today, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here at Veterans on Duty, we are a policy advocacy organization focused on making sure our military is strong, lethal, and focused. All of that, of course, is about making sure America is safe, strong, and free. Those are the values that we hold dear at Vets on Duty, and that's why we're going to be sitting down with different leaders, veterans, policymakers, even some elected officials in our Beyond the Call video series. Stay tuned and join us.